Before you push your cart through Walmart stores again, there's something very few people are willing to say out loud. Not everything with a low price tag is actually a good deal, and for older shoppers who've trusted this store for years, a handful of everyday picks are quietly costing more than they save. Hit subscribe and drop a like if this helps. Top 10 items you should never buy at Walmart. 1. Mainstays Flatpack desks and bookshelves. The internal frame on Mainstay's office furniture is pressed particle board held together with weak glue, and even though it looks solid on the showroom floor, the $124 desk and the $68 bookshelf are two clear examples of the problem. Assemble either one yourself, and the screws going into that porous wood strip their threads after just a handful of tightenings. Several buyers have reported the desk starts wobbling within weeks of regular use, while the bookshelf shelves sag under the weight of a few hardcover books left sitting too long. The cam locks holding the desk panels together are another weak spot, working loose after just a few months of drawers being opened and closed. One customer described having to wedge furniture pads under the bookshelf's back corners after 3 months because the back panel was only stapled rather than screwed in, causing the whole unit to lean forward gradually. If you're putting anything with real weight on these shelves, it helps to reinforce the brackets yourself before loading them up. At other mid-range furniture retailers, a comparable bookshelf built from thicker engineered wood runs around $95, a bit more up front, but you're not rebuilding it a year later. For older adults especially, constantly disassembling and retightening furniture isn't just tiring, it's a real fall risk, particularly on days when stiff joints make lifting and maneuvering harder than usual. 2. Store brand bath towels. A $13 towel set sounds like an easy win, but after 3 or 4 washes, the surface starts shedding fibers all over the inside of your washing machine, despite packaging that promises softness and absorbency. The cotton is woven loosely to cut costs, so water absorbency drops fast, and you end up reaching for a second towel mid-shower. Worse, the rough, stiff texture that develops after washing and drying can irritate sensitive, older skin. The edge stitching also unravels quickly if washed alongside clothing with zippers or metal buttons. Plenty of people have tried cold water washes and low-heat drying to slow the damage, but the piling still happens, which tells you the problem is the material itself, not how you're caring for it. Premium towel lines at specialty home goods stores run around $24, but they hold their softness through dozens of washes, thanks to longer cotton fibers and a much tighter weave. Budget garden hoses. One shopper said her $13 garden hose started leaking at the connector after just 6 weeks, even with the nozzle fully shut off, forcing her to wrap the fitting in Teflon tape as a stopgap. The problem is the thin plastic coupling used on the private label hose line, it's not machined tightly enough, so water seeps out right at the connection point after minimal use. Water flow is also inconsistent, strong in some spots and weak in others, with overall pressure noticeably dropping after about 2 months as mineral deposits clog the nozzle openings, which can't really be cleaned out. On top of that, the plastic threading connecting to the spigot can crack if tightened with a wrench instead of by hand, the way it's meant to be. If you're keeping one of these, check the connector threads monthly and swap the rubber washer the moment you notice dampness pooling at the base. Mid-tier hoses at home improvement stores run about $32, but the brass fittings and reinforced lining make them last significantly longer, worth it for anyone who needs reliable water pressure for regular yard work. The next item is sitting in almost every utility closet in America, and hardly anyone suspects it belongs on this list. Budget laundry baskets and hampers. The handles on plastic or synthetic laundry baskets, exactly the spot bearing the most weight once the basket's loaded with wet clothes, are usually held on with thin plastic joints that snap after just a few months of regular use. At roughly $15, this is an item nearly every household owns at least one of, but the base also tends to warp if it sits on a damp floor for too long, throwing off the basket's balance and making it prone to tipping. The outer plastic scratches easily too, looking worn out within a year even with careful handling. One older shopper said her basket handle snapped without warning while she was carrying a load down to the basement, spilling wet laundry across the floor and forcing her to rewash everything after it picked up dust and grime. On collapsible fabric hampers, the internal metal frame bends out of shape after repeated folding and unfolding, and the hamper eventually struggles to stand upright on its own. If you're sticking with this type, check the handles regularly and avoid overloading them with soaked items, since the extra weight from absorbed water is what stresses the plastic joints most. At dedicated home goods retailers, a thick plastic or metal frame basket runs about $32, but it can hold several times the weight without cracking. cheap kitchen appliances and cookware, an $87 countertop ice maker, a $14 toaster, a $18.88 blender, and a $14.74 frying pan all share the same underlying issue. The internal motors and components are noticeably weaker than the power rating printed on the box suggests. One family said their ice maker started making a grinding noise after about 4 months, and when they called customer support, they were told it fell under normal wear and tear, not warranty coverage. The blender struggles when crushing ice or frozen fruit, and both the blender blades and the frying pan surface are made from thin-gauge steel that dulls or wears down fast with regular use. The toaster's power cord is also short and flimsy on several units. As for the frying pan, the nonstick coating flakes off quickly if you use metal utensils instead of wood or silicone. What makes it worse is that when one part fails, there's usually no replacement part available. You're stuck buying an entirely new appliance. Comparable blenders at mid-range appliance brands run up to $28, but they come with a real parts warranty and a noticeably sturdier motor. Budget window blinds and curtains. The fabric on many entry-level blind and curtain sets fades unevenly within the first few weeks near a sunny window, and the plastic slats or grommets, meant to keep everything hanging straight, start warping and separating after just a few months of daily opening and closing. Smaller sets in this line run about $12, while larger multi-panel sets climb to $29 and even $86. The cord mechanisms on the blinds also tend to jam or fray over time, creating both a nuisance and, in homes with small pets or grandkids visiting, a genuine safety concern. One shopper said her blinds jammed halfway up right in the middle of trying to let light into her kitchen, and no amount of gentle tugging would fix the mechanism. She eventually had to cut the cord loose entirely. Machine washing the curtain panels is also a gamble, since the cheap fabric often shrinks or loses its shape after a single cycle, pushing many buyers toward careful hand washing just to stretch out the lifespan a little. At specialty window treatment retailers, blinds with a reinforced cord lock system run around $45, but they hold up securely over years of daily use without the constant risk of a stuck or snapped cord. Notice how this list keeps landing on the items that seem the most harmless. The next one is even more common, sitting quietly in the garage or basement of nearly every household without anyone suspecting a thing: plastic storage bins. The recycled polypropylene used in standard multi-purpose storage bins is naturally more brittle than virgin plastic, which means the corners crack easily once you stack a few boxes on top of each other. Smaller bins in the line run $6.44, with the largest size reaching $16.86. The lids frequently warp after repeated exposure to temperature swings, which keeps the box from sealing properly and lets small insects slip inside. The side handles, the exact point under the most stress when you're lifting a fully packed bin, are also the most common failure point, according to long-term user feedback. Some buyers have reported the bottom of the bin sagging under sustained weight, with cracks slowly spreading outward from the center. One shopper said her largest bin split open at the bottom corner after just one winter of storing holiday decorations, even though it had never been moved after being placed on the shelf. If you're using these, avoid stacking more than 3 high and always lift with both hands rather than trusting the plastic handles alone. Dedicated organization retailers sell thicker walled bins for around $28, and they can be stacked securely and survive multiple moves without cracking. For older adults storing seasonal items, a bin splitting open mid-carry is a real physical risk, not just a wasted purchase. Budget picture frames and mirrors. A $3.88 picture frame looks like a harmless little upgrade for the wall, but the thin veneer finish tends to peel or bubble within a few months in any room that gets direct sunlight. One shopper said the small mirror sheet hung in her hallway developed a visible warp in the frame after roughly 3 months, causing the glass to sit unevenly and eventually crack along one edge without any impact at all. The backing on many of these frames is held on with small plastic tabs that snap off if bumped even slightly while dusting, letting the photo or mirror slide loose. The hanging hardware on the back is also usually thin stamped metal that bends if you use a nail even slightly larger than recommended, and in humid spots like a hallway near a bathroom, it tends to rust faster than expected. Plenty of other decor pieces at this price point share the same issue, from frames that warp to small figurines that chip at the edges almost immediately. Specialty home decor shops sell frames with a solid wood or metal backing for around $22, and those hold their shape and finish for years of regular handling. For anything meant to stay on display long-term, that small price difference tends to be worth it compared to replacing pieces every few months. Air mattresses. Fully firm at bedtime, sunken by morning. That's the common complaint about the $55 air mattress typically bought for overnight guests or camping trips. One older couple said they had to reinflate the mattress twice during the night when their grandkids stayed over for the holidays, and both of them woke up with noticeable lower back pain the next day. The PVC used in this mattress is much thinner than heavy-duty outdoor lines, which keeps the valve from sealing tightly and lets air slowly escape overnight, especially frustrating for older adults who are sensitive to an unstable sleeping surface. The seams at the corners are another weak point, prone to fraying if the mattress isn't folded correctly for storage. The included electric pump is also underpowered, making full inflation slow and prone to overheating if run too long. Heavy-duty outdoor air mattresses run around $90, with the difference coming down to a thicker plastic layer and a double-lock valve system that keeps air stable across multiple nights, a small extra cost that buys guests an actually decent night's sleep. Interestingly, the last item on this list isn't a physical product at all. It's the thing that quietly drains money from people's wallets without them ever noticing. Extended warranties for home appliances. A long list of scenarios falls outside the coverage, everything from improper use to anything classified as normal wear and tear, even though cashiers routinely offer this add-on for around $8, sometimes climbing to $10 depending on the item's price when you're checking out budget appliances. Filing a claim typically takes several weeks, and a fair number of customers have had claims denied over something as minor as a missing detail on the original receipt. One customer said she called 3 separate times over 2 weeks just to check the status of a claim on her broken blender, only to be told the receipt had been lost in the system entirely. For items that are already cheap to begin with, like an $18.88 blender or a $14.74 frying pan, that $8 warranty fee can amount to nearly half the product's actual value, all while the odds of a claim actually getting approved stay low. Some shoppers have even found that the warranty they paid for got attached to the wrong item on the receipt due to a checkout error during a busy shift, leaving them out the extra fee with zero benefit to show for it. If you're considering one of these plans, photograph your receipt right at the register and double-check the product name before you leave the store. And if peace of mind is really what you're after, a credit card with built-in purchase protection usually covers the same ground without any extra fee at all. There's one more corner of the store almost everyone passes through on every single trip, and it may carry more risk than anything mentioned so far. Why you should think twice before buying meat here. Alongside the home goods already covered, the fresh meat counter is another area quietly changing how a lot of families shop. It starts with the label itself. Sourcing information tends to be vague, without the specific farm or region that dedicated grocery chains typically list. The USDA grades on the beef packaging also lean heavily towards select or choice rather than prime, which means tenderness and marbling can vary noticeably from one purchase to the next. A number of shoppers have also noticed the color of meat in prepackaged trays doesn't always match what's underneath the top layer, a sign the packaging process isn't as tightly controlled as it should be. One shopper described buying a tray of ground beef that looked bright red and fresh on top, only to find the bottom had already turned dull gray when she opened it to cook, forcing her to toss almost half the package. The seafood counter often lacks staff on hand to advise on freshness or proper storage, and the poultry selection rarely includes organic or free-range options, sticking mostly to conventional lines that are cheap but only average in quality. Cold chain handling can also slip during busy hours, affecting how long meat sits out under warm display lighting. The pork selection typically skips heritage breed options, which usually cost about $4 more per pound, but offer noticeably better flavor and texture. Many shoppers have also found the prepackaged portions inflexible compared to having a butcher-cut meat to order for a specific recipe. And maybe the biggest takeaway is that while the prices here look low on paper, a lot of people are really paying for volume rather than actual quality or flavor. Before you head out, there's something more important than what's already in your cart, and that's the exact path you walk to get there without even noticing. Behavioral psychology and supermarket tactics. Right after wasting money on that warranty add-on at checkout, there's another pattern quietly playing out across your entire shopping trip. Shelf placement and signage aren't random, they're engineered to get you spending more than you planned. Walk through the doors and a red rollback sign catches your eye almost instantly, triggering that little hit of having found a deal, even when the actual markdown is a few cents at best. Before that feeling even fades, you're standing in front of a shelf where the name brand box sits right next to a noticeably cheaper store label version, nudging you toward the cheaper option without realizing that price gap was built in on purpose. Milk and eggs, two things almost every household needs weekly, are placed all the way at the back of the store, forcing a walk past entire aisles of snacks, candles, and home decor before you reach what you actually came for. One shopper said she went in only for breakfast milk and walked out with a full cart, her total more than 50% over what she'd planned to spend. That lines up with data showing actual spending runs 25 to 70% higher than the original shopping list. Buying in bulk isn't automatically the better deal either, unless you check the small print unit price listed under the shelf tag. Larger packages can sometimes cost more per ounce. Pull up the website that evening to compare, and it's not unusual to find the same item was over 12% cheaper online, yet the store won't honor a price match at the register. A low price tag doesn't always mean a good deal. Sometimes spending a little more upfront saves a lot more down the line. Paying closer attention on every trip is really all it takes to avoid most of these traps.